We will now call the meeting to order. We'll have order from Ward 12. Take the roll.
Stephen. Here.
Douglas.
Present.
Perk.
Present.
E. Rodriguez.
Present.
Singh.
Present.
C. Rodriguez.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Pupo.
Here.
Decker.
Here.
Festa.
Here.
Haywood. Susan. Santana.
Here.
Costa. Santiago.
Here.
Fresco.
Present.
Ortiz.
Present.
Cola.
Present.
Edwards. Ariarama. Winter.
Present.
Morrison.
Here.
Walker Meyer.
Here.
Hamilton. Marchand.
Present.
Rakeem. Furlow.
Here.
Marks.
Here.
Wingate.
Present.
Smith.
A quorum has been established. We will now have divine guidance from order from Ward 1.
Evening, colleagues. Please be seated. This is an incredible privilege to serve alongside all of the past 2 years, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to say a few words of reflection before all this tonight. Over the past few months, all of us did the work of democracy. We knocked on hundreds of doors, organized and showed up to events in our neighborhoods and around the city, and collectively talked to thousands of residents and leaders in our community. After doing all this work, many of us will have the opportunity and responsibility of continuing to serve our city over the next 2 years. The responsibility we've been given is a big one, which is why I've been thinking recently about the importance of representing the folks in our city who voted as well as those who didn't. Voter turnout in our community can be low. Just under 13,000 people voted on November 2nd. As we all know, around 135,000 people live in our city, and many more people did not vote either because they weren't allowed to, weren't able to make it out to vote, or chose not to. Many of the folks in our city who didn't vote are people we all know we need to be fighting for the most. They are immigrants, many of them undocumented, worried about both their ability to remain safely in our community as well as about the challenges they face in finding housing, good jobs, and safe neighborhoods. They are kids afraid of the violence in our city and unsure about their ability to stay in our community at high school and build good, stable lives. They are single parents working 2 jobs or hospital employees on all-day shifts who didn't have the time to come to the polls to need better schools and safe parks for their children. Folks who couldn't or didn't vote are disproportionately young. They rent, don't own their homes. They take the bus and don't have a car. They are more likely to live in apartment buildings or public housing, not single-family homes. Many are struggling to find good jobs and pay the rent, and many may not even know the Board of Alders exists. And we all know that this has always been the case. Over the past few months, as I've knocked on doors, made phone calls, and talked to folks in our neighborhoods, I've been thinking a lot about all the many thousands of people who I couldn't talk to, or who chose not to come out to vote, who also often don't show up at city meetings, or know who to contact about issues that are facing their lives. As I reflect on the past 2 years serving alongside all of you and look ahead to the next 2, I'm looking forward to working together to engage and fight for all our neighbors across our city. I've learned a huge amount from all of you, and it's been an honor to work with you. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to continue working with all of you on behalf of every New Havener over the next 2 years. Thank you.
We are still practicing COVID-19 safety. When you are not speaking, please keep your mask up. If you're speaking, you can put your mask down. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. And I move approval of the journal of the November 4, 2021 Board of Alders.
The item has been moved in second. Are there any corrections to the journal? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passes. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Under unanimous consent, I ask you to see item number 1 from the tax collector or tax refunds November 15, 2021.
Is there anyone going to deny unanimous consent? Seeing none, Ms. Majority Leader.
I move the item.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions, the item passes. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Under unanimous consent, I ask you to say items 2 through 4. 2, order concerning the property tax of Isaac Bradley, will be able to tax accounts 558, 2, and 55951. 3, order concerning the property tax of Glenn Nelson, will be able to tax items 799475, 936001. And 4, order concerning the property tax of Derek Wells, will be able to tax accounts 671275 and 671276.
Is there anyone going to deny unanimous consent on these items? Seeing none, Ms. Majority Leader.
I move these items.
The items have been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 16.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening. I would like to ask this board to approve these items. These are individuals that would be needing assistance with waiving the interest. However, we're able to recoup the taxes in the sum of $2,100. I urge the support for this item. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions, the item passes. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Under unanimous consent, I ask you to say item number 5 from the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, submitting a resolution approving the rolling street closures for Christopher Martin's annual Christmas run for the children, 5K, December 5, 2021.
Is there anyone going to deny unanimous consent? Seeing none, Ms. Majority Leader.
I move the item, Madam President.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 7.
Thank you, Madam President. Most of this event takes place in Ward 7. I've never heard complaints about the rolling road closures. Rather, I hear people who love the event because of it being really festive. In addition, over the years, over 50,000 toys have been given to New Haven kids. I appreciate Christopher Martin always sponsoring this, and so I encourage my colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions, the item passes. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Under communications, I know item 6 to 13, bringing us to River City Initiative. I move item 14 from the acting executive director of River City Initiative submitting an order of the New Haven Board of Aldermen approving the acquisition of 346 Grand Avenue for up to $305,000 plus closing costs, and the acquisition of 350 Grand Avenue for $155,000 plus closing costs.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 7. You put your hand up or no?
I don't know if this works for you. Thank you, Madam President. While I very much appreciate the goal of turning these houses into houses that will be stabilized by ownership, I don't support this for a few reasons. First of all, in the same packet that we got today, these houses are for people, according to this plan, who are from 60 to 100% AMI. In the same packet we got today in the report of the Affordable Housing Commission, it talked about how 36% of New Haveners are at or below 80% AMI. Therefore, I believe these units should have a lower AMI and not go up to 100%. Additionally, half of it is to be rental units, and according to the meetings of the PAD committee, we don't have the ability to control the rents and make them affordable housing. I also have concerns, as I've said in the past, about the process that these LC items come to us. I know it's, quote, the way it's done, and that there isn't an Alder committee hearing, but I don't think that's just because it's the way it's done, it's a good reason to do it. I wish this could have gone to an Alder committee, so we could have discussed it. It could be a lower AMI, and also have more discussion about things like the amount of money it costs to rehab all of these, which we just learned at the last minute. And it also would be useful to have an Alder committee to have a better sense of the strategy LCI has for doing these rehabs rather than having them come to us as one-off. So again, while I appreciate the goal, I do think this would be better to go back to a committee and push for a lower AMI. So I do not support this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 22. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you, Madam President. I stand in support of this item today. And I do understand, as the colleague from Ward 7 talked about some information that was recently brought to our attention. But we always have to remember that in some communities, in various communities, there are things that are bigger than just the cost. Sometimes you have to invest to clean up certain areas in order to make it safe. And you can never, ever put a cost on safety. And so I just wanted to stand to bring to my colleagues' attention, yes, sometimes we might invest in something that we might not get the same return, but at the same time, the return is in life. And if we can reconstruct this area to make it a better, safer situation for the residents that live in this area, we have that responsibility. And so I stand here in support, and I hope the rest of my colleagues support this.
I will now call on colleague from Ward 21.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to reiterate the concern I expressed in public August that if we are renovating historic structures to historic standards, I think we ought to find a way to use state programs that are set up to help entities do that. And if we can have a state program that can pay for almost a third of the cost, then I think it's incumbent on us to figure out how we set that up to take advantage of it. Because as we heard from Mr. Pinto, it's estimated to be at least $1 million of rehab costs on top of the acquisition costs that we're voting on this evening. Thank you, Madam President.
I will now call on colleague from Ward 16.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm the Alder where these properties are located. And I had a conversation with the counselor, the executive director, as well as LCI. And this makes perfect sense that it would be ideal for this kind of project to be realized. So I would urge the support of this body, and I also would like to unite consensus with my president pro temp, because it will allow the properties to be developed as two-owner occupied homes. It will allow for the properties to have folks that rent, potentially future home, and will allow for stability in our community this much needed at this time. So I would urge the support of this body. I understand that there may be some negatives in the beginning, but we have to start somewhere. This is the time to do it. Thank you.
I see order from Ward 7. Are you saying something different before you start speaking? Or are you saying the same thing? Because we only taking different testimony tonight.
Think you. I just want to clarify what I said, Madam President, because I have a feeling my colleague from Ward 22 might not have understood all of it. I think my point is, I was saying the AMI for this, I think is higher than it should be for affordable housing. And so I was hoping this could go back to a committee, not that I oppose the necessity of cleaning up a neighborhood and having home ownership, but I think it should be at a more affordable rate, given the statistics we know about the city and the affordability that what people can afford in this city to make it truly affordable. Thank you.
Right, and you don't even have to clarify, because when people are standing talking on the floor, they're talking directly to me. So there you go. Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 27.
Thank you, Madam President. I stand in favor of this LCI item. Madam President, all throughout our city, people are crying for help. People are crying for good housing. Our people are tired of living in the dirt. This is why I'm supporting this. It is time for us to make decisions to renovate or rehabilitate buildings that have been sitting perhaps for decades. Let's vote in favor of this. Let's not penalize our residents because of our process. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passed, Mr. Majority Leader.
Madam Secretary, I know B, bringing us the second readings, item 16A through O. Because favorable A, order to move board of Alderman the appointment of Kevin Donald to the Commission on Equal Opportunities. B, order to move board of Alders approving the redevelopment of the reappointment of Jennifer Walker to the Financial Review and Audit Commission. C, order to move board of Alders approving the reappointment of Reed Amir to the Cultural Affairs Commission. D, order to move board of Alders approving the reappointment of Francesca Vinola to the Cultural Affairs Commission. E, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Valley Aquilas to the Cultural Affairs Commission. F, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Hope Chavez to the Cultural Affairs Commission. G, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Leslie Negron to the Civil Service Board. H, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Carmen Mendez to the Homeless Advisory Commission. I, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Annette Parker to the Board of Ethics. J, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Vina Silva to the Commission on Disabilities. K, order to move board of Alders approving the reappointment of David Kuhn to the Cultural Affairs Commission. L, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Pamela Allen to the Commission on Equal Opportunities. M, order to move board of Alders approving the reappointment of Billy to the Commission on Disabilities. N, order to move board of Alders approving the reappointment of Diane Acton to the Homeless Advisory Commission. And O, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Barbara Green to the Retirement Board for Police and Fire Employees.
Second.
The items have been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Board 13.
Thank you, Madam President. On Monday, October 25th, the Organized Affairs Committee met and we would like to favorably recommend this appointee. The appointees who were required attended the meeting and spoke with the committee enthusiastically about serving the city. I urge my colleagues to go favorably to support them. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 16.
Thank you, Madam President. And so, these items, especially at the for the appointment of Madame Canidas to the Cultural Affairs Commission. Knowing her background, she has worked tirelessly for many years in several organizations, and she has been part of being able to partner, collaborate, and be able to host cultural events throughout the city of Haven. She has hosted workouts, Alders, phone drives, food drives. She has been part of many events and initiatives in the city of Haven where she has raised over $1,000 in benefits of the community. Even during this pandemic, during COVID, she has been able to assist with the challenges that she has utilized online premises to help with providing local health information and be able to do masks and other personal protective equipment to local senior centers, to supply students, and she has collaborated in the past with many of the community members that have also urged this committee to not only approve her, but also the other members. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passed, Ms. Majority Leader.
Under Organized Affairs, I would like 17A through F, be withdrawn. A, order to move board of Alders the reappointment of Alphonse Guerrero Senior to the Board of Zoning Appeals. B, order to move board of Alders the appointment of Laura Coleman to the Homeless Advisory Commission. C, order to move board of Alders the appointment of Patricia Douglas to the Homeless Advisory Commission. D, order to move board of Alders the reappointment of Robert Ayers to the Commission on Disabilities. E, order to move board of Alders the reappointment of Elizabeth Robinson to the Homeless. F, order to move board of Alders approving the appointment of Linda McDowell to the Commission on Disabilities.
Second.
The items have been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 13.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. On Monday, October 25th, the Automatic Affairs Committee met, and we would like to move to withdraw on these items. These appointees did not attend the meeting as required, and there was not enough time allowed by the charter for them to attend the next meeting, or have already served 9 years on the committee. And the next step is to be off for 1 year before they can be appointed to the same committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion on leave to withdraw? Seeing none, all in favor of giving these items leave to withdraw, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passed. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move item 18 and as favorable for the Board of Alders approving a 35-year partnership lease operating and funding agreement with the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation for the management and operation of the new pavement convenience station at State Street Station campus to the initial capital partnership agreement of the campus, and 3, approving an agreement with the New Haven Parking Authority to manage the operations of the New Station at State Street Station campus.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion, I call on order from Ward 25.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to amend this item by substitution.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion on the amendment only, I call on order from Ward 25.
Thank you, Madam President. The administration has suggested some changes to this item in response to comments made by the committee members in our meeting on October 14th, and in response to further clarifications that have been suggested by the Attorney General. And so the substitute amendment that I'm moving incorporates those changes. I bring my colleagues' attention to this stapled document, which I circulated earlier. This is the amended text of the order from this body that does the 3 things that this order does. Authorizes the 35-year lease, approves the capital vision, and 3, authorizes the city to subcontract the daily management of the train station to the parking authority. So that's what this order does, and there are some changes in it. Particular note is in the back page, the text in red. There is a couple of the changes that were suggested by committee members. And the first one is that after 10 years, that the parties would come back to this body to give an update on how that working arrangement has been going and on plans that the parties are making towards future investments and transformation of the campus. The other one does the same thing, but at 33 years. So both of these amendments to the order are directly responsive to comments that were made by committee members on the back in October. The other amendment that responds to our committee is that the lease agreement has been amended in the minority business enterprise and disadvantaged business enterprise sections to commit the parties to create meaningful opportunities for career advancement and apprenticeships, right? So those 2 changes reflected in this revised order, reflected in the updated lease agreement itself, respond to feedback from Alders at the Finance Committee. The other changes are reflective of feedback from the Attorney General. The State Department of Transportation notified the city that it's in the process of standardizing its asset management software. And so it's going to require the parking authority to use that software. So this lease agreement incorporates that commitment. And the final one is just clarifying language in various sections of the revised lease agreement that clarify the duties and obligations that the parties have towards each other. There were some inadvertent sections of the lease agreement that weren't as clear as they could have been. And so this revision clarifies those things. And this document was provided to us over the weekend. So that's a summary of what's in this substitute amendment. And I encourage colleagues to vote to support it. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion on the amendment only? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The amendment passed. We are now back to the item as amended. Discussion, I call on order from Ward 25.
Thank you, Madam President. On October 14th, the Finance Committee heard this request to approve a 35-year agreement with the State Department of Transportation for the city to manage the station property, that's the area used by the railroad, and to be able to subcontract the management operations of the New Haven parking authority. This order also involves a joint commitment for the parties on how to raise money and funds to redevelop that campus going forward. And the campus includes the station, the parking lots immediately to the east and west, and the State Street Station as well. And the parties in this document about the future funding, it's not a document that provides funding, it's more a vision of what would we raise money for? What would the new direction that we would want to take the station into be? And some of the features include a much more plentiful and updated retail environment within the station, better facilities for multimodal transit that needs better places for folks to pick up, to get on buses and to be dropped off by buses, more bike connections, and other features that would harmonize it with the city's Hill to Downtown plan vision that we enacted some years ago. So that's what's before us. We've just amended it. The arrangement that we have now where the city manages, the parking authority manages the station is working well. And it's been a long journey between the city and the state to have some coming together of visions for this very important facility, this very important hub in our community. And so this is a progressive agreement. I encourage colleagues to vote to support. Thank you, Madam President.
I will now call on colleagues from Ward 22.
Thank you, Madam President. I stand in support of this item today. As one of the things that came out of the revisions was something that I know that I mentioned in our finance meeting regarding apprenticeships. It is so important for us to remember our history. And the railroad station was one of the main staple jobs in our community. And one of the things that we have to remember is that the availability of people working in this field is becoming smaller. So we have a responsibility to create more skilled labor in order to keep our train station working well. And so I'm so happy that the administration agreed with us to add the apprenticeship language into the agreement, because now this speaks to our legislative agreement in regards to good jobs. I also am thankful for the fact that there's language here to make sure that we come back and look at the agreement to make sure that things are working, because of the things that may work today might not work 10 years from now, might not work 30 years from now. So I'm happy to see that we are there's a mandate to come back to the table to make sure that things are good, and to also make sure that we can work on an agreement for the next whatever many years. And so I ask my colleagues to also support this amended item, as this will really help our community grow overall.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 9. 10.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise in support of this item. The station has 4 million people that come through it. And that's only for the main Union Station, with additional 400,000 that go to State Street Station for the commuters. This is a positive partnership between the state, the city, and the New Haven Parking Authority. With all the development that's happening, being connected is extremely important, and this is a step further in accomplishing that goal. And I'm confident that once, and I pray for this, that high-speed trains become a reality, This will allow for additional train ridership and boom New Haven's economy. So I encourage my colleagues to support this item. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 7.
Thank you, Madam President. I too encourage everyone to support this item. I just want to point out 2 points. One, State Street Station, which is in my ward, the fact that it's not managed by the same entity right now as Union Station seems like a lost opportunity. I think it will improve things by having them both managed by the same entity. And also, while Union Station is a beautiful gem, it's completely underutilized in terms of retail. So I am excited by the plans to expand that to bring in a lot more revenue, which is going to allow us to improve operations. And if you think of a city like Washington, D.C., people go to the train station to go out to eat and to shop. And we're, as my colleague from Ward 10 said, we're building all of these residential units around there. So it's a real opportunity to, in addition to the people who are coming through our station, the people who live nearby, just enlivening our economy. And so that's all good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passes, Ms. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 19, public safety favorable order of the Board of Alders concerning the structure, responsibilities, and bylaws of community management teams in the city.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 29.
Thank you, Madam President. Be it ordered that the Board of Aldermen recommend that the community management team from the city steering committee consists of at least one member of each.
Excuse me. Are you offering an amendment or what are you actually doing?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes.
Okay, so start there.
Thank you. Be it ordered that the Board of Aldermen.
Slow down, just slow down for me. So you're offering an amendment, and I have to get a second on the amendment.
Second.
Okay, now, discussion, there you go. Now you can discuss the amendment. Thank you.
Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. Be it ordered that the Board of Aldermen recommends that community management team for a citywide steering committee consists of at least one member of each CMT to arrange for structured training in such subject matter as the steering committee deems appropriate. That the steering committee develop uniform bylaws for all CMTs that provides for the election of office, the taking of minutes of meetings, and that meeting be conducted pursuant to the Robert Rules of Order. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion on the amendment only? I call on order from Ward 4.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. Many city projects require for contracts, proposals, or plans, the input of residents to enhance their support and improvements and the direct impact where they exist and or will exist. Community management teams with the presence of many residents are another entity that can be considered to meet this requirement. Meetings conducted pursuant to the Robert Rules of Order and uniform bylaws of orders can be very effective in providing an environment and process where communication from residents and resources can be interchanged and impact the matters at hand. I urge my colleagues to support the order to the Board of Alders to make this recommendation. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion on the amendment only? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are now back to the item as amended. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 16.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to be in support of this item and the amended, actually as amended. For the simple reason, this will allow consistency and uniform process of city as a whole. Many of my constituents have been asking for a long time now for a consistent unity of bylaws that will allow for the community to operate. This will certainly do that. The amendment will certainly do that and execute it. It will certainly allow for a more unit within the city. We have many CMTs. This will allow for an opportunity for all the CMTs to come together and for have all representation throughout the entire city as a whole. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 7.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. I appreciate the interest, the role that CMTs play in our city. I do want to emphasize that this is just a recommendation. For example, a CMT wouldn't have to use Robert Rules of Order. To be honest, for the CMT meetings I attend, I think using Robert's Rules of Order will stifle the community building conversations that happen and potentially reduce attendance. When at the meeting we had at Public Safety, there was also a lot of discussion about how can we increase attendance at CMT meetings. So while I appreciate this may be a great thing for some community management teams, I want to emphasize that it is a recommendation, so there's flexibility among management teams as well. Thank you.
I will now call on colleague from Ward 25.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise. First of all, to thank our chair and vice chair of the Public Safety Committee for running meetings to hear from residents and to discuss the item as it was originally submitted and to understand better this topic. I want to thank Alderman Wingate for his amendment, which I support. And I would like to say that I actually believe that we should encourage our neighbors who run these CMTs to enact these recommendations, all of them. I think it would improve the functioning of these spots. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passed, Ms. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move item 28 to see tax rate favorable. A, order A, deferring collection of real property taxes due from Eunice Johnson on a residence grand list of 2020. B, order abating deferring collection of real property taxes due from Patricia Kane on her residence grand list of 2020. And C, order abating deferring collection of real property taxes due from Linwood Garland on his residence grand list of 2016 through 2020.
Second.
The items have been moved in second discussion. I call on colleague from Ward 16.
Thank you, Madam President. These items are residents where in the past they have applied for a tax waiver because they didn't correct the requirements for the program. They have applied once again, and I would urge the support that these items be considered and approved with the collection for all 38 agencies. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passed, Ms. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move item number 21, joint community development legislation favorable, zoning ordinance text amendment, and zoning ordinance map amendment, PDD number 53, planning development district number 53 to allow residential and related uses of up to 500 apartments located at 501 through 585 Baltimore.
Second.
The item has been moved in second discussion. I call on order from Ward 9.
Sir. Thank you. I'll just shout. Thank you, Madam President. On Wednesday, October 27th, 2021, the Joint Community Development and Legislation Committee met, and we would like to favorably recommend this item. This modification to the existing Plan Development District number 53 This modification. I'm just gonna finish out. This modification to the existing planned development district number 53 will allow the addition of up to 500 residential apartments to be built at 501 to 585 Longworth. The proposed plans include 2 mixed-use buildings. One building will be 13 stories and the other 15 stories. They will include associated parking, open space, and commercial, retail, and entertainment spaces in addition to the residential apartments. There is one important issue that came up in the hearing that I do want to draw quick attention to. Prior to the hearing, state environmental officials raised concerns about doing any residential development on the shoreline at all. And it's a serious question. Due to climate change, sea levels will continue to rise, flooding will become more frequent. These are facts, these are indisputable. The city engineer and others in the administration explained how the plans were made so as to withstand this inevitable change, not to turn a blind eye to it. This city needs more and denser housing. And the Longworth area could be a thriving transit-centered neighborhood, and both of these things are necessary to lower carbon emissions in the long term. Short of making a decision to abandon the waterfront altogether, the best we can do is development that prepares for our new reality the best we can. And so I urge colleagues to vote favorably. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? I'll call on colleague from Ward 21.
Thank you, Madam President. Opening up PDD 553 to residential uses opens up new development opportunities for the city. But it also opens up new risks and responsibilities. Busco's plans show that residential development can be done safely. The first floor of their residential uses is more than 20 feet above high tide. But our city street, Longworth Drive, is only a few feet above high tide. Busco's flood evacuation plan initiates evacuations when Longworth Drive floods. With rising sea levels and storms, Longworth Drive could flood and cause evacuations frequently in the near future. Underscoring the need to raise the road and make other coastal improvements to keep new residents safe. We should approve this PDD amendment because of the significant development potential it enables. But we should also be aware of the significant cost of new infrastructure improvements, like raising Longworth Drive, that will be required to support this development. The administration should expedite plans for how to finance infrastructure improvements to make sure the entire area is safely habitable. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 6.
Thank you, Madam President.
I urge my colleagues to be in support of this PDD as we will start the conversations now. With this plan and this development, it will move us. It will help us reach out to the state and local government to assist us in the infrastructure that needs to be done over in Longworth. This development absolutely, in speaking to Director Zen, they are going to, again, start conversations that are going to help keep everyone safe in the area, not just in the Longworth corridor where this PDD is being offered, but clear across the harbor, going down to the Summer School area. This is a plan, it's the Longworth growth plan that's been in place for many years. And again, I urge my colleagues to support this development because this is going to be able to help us fund what's needed to keep us all safe when the flooding does start in the future. Thank you, Madam President.
I will now call on colleague from Ward 25.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of this PDD amendment. I have the honor and privilege to serve on the city planning commission, so I have advocacy for this project in multiple locations. And the questions that arose in those meetings, starting with city plan, were thought-provoking and really important. Would this project, would a project that this PDD could support, as an amenity support, improve public access to the shoreline or diminish public access? And when we looked at the plans, the general plans that are part of the PDD and saw that it would improve public access and make it a much more inviting and an open and accessible portion of our shoreline. The programming on the grounds is deliberately designed to support and facilitate public enjoyment of the shoreline and provide a bunch of amenities that people may enjoy that we can't do enough. If you go to that site now, it's public and you wouldn't know it. Doesn't look public and there's nobody there. At least never that I've seen. I did not do that. So I think this PDD amendment and the general plan that we've seen so far definitely support more public access to this important resource for our city. The second is the question of, should we retreat from the shoreline or should we embrace the shoreline? And there are legitimate arguments to be made for both sides of that question. I take very seriously the letter that DEP sent advising our city not to build on the shoreline. But I was satisfied with the answer that our city staff, especially our city engineer, we are not abandoning our shoreline, we are developing our shoreline. We are protecting the infrastructure that is extremely important nearby, including the highway, including the train station, and having more boots on the ground, more people there makes sense. Especially if you design to really robust standards, which is what the city plan staff pushed the development team to do in terms of the elevations and the heights at which the residential floors would be located. And so this city has had has put a lot of effort into coastal resiliency, getting funding and studies, shoring up infrastructure to improve the resiliency of everything that's near that shoreline. And I think this project falls in line with that. The last point I'd like to make, Madam President, is this question of public investment to support private projects. This happens a lot. We see federal dollars going into Fairhaven to remediate green brownfields, make them developable. You know, our city staff have been working on multiple EPA grants to fund cleanup efforts there. Certainly accepted state funds for the clock factory for a similar purpose. But no project in our city shows more public investment than the downtown cross, the Route 34 project, right? Tens and tens of millions of dollars in mostly federal dollars, creating infrastructure that will render that empty space with multiple lanes of highway into a developable set of parcels that create projects that produce taxes, that produce jobs. And so, yes, it is true that we do spend public dollars, often federal, sometimes state, sometimes city, to turn an area into something that private investors can invest in. And if you look at the numbers that we've heard so far, although I agree, we need to be more precise numbers about what the price tag would be for raising that street, it's pennies on the dollar compared to other public investments that the government has made in this city to support development. So I agree with my colleague in the 21st Ward about wanting to know what those dollar figures are. But I think if you look at the value of the project that's being proposed, and that we'll learn more about it site plan review in the next 2 months, compared to the cost tag of the price tag of raising the streets, it's a really good ratio and much smaller ratio than what we see in other important projects in the state. So for all those reasons and more, I encourage my colleagues to support the site. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 7.
Thank you, Madam President. I also support this project. There are many positive things about this plan, such as activating empty space that's being cut off by the highway, possibly spurring the city's plan to further develop the Long Wharf area, and bringing in much needed tax revenue. Moreover, the Fusco team did an excellent job presenting their plan and describing how the design of the 2 planned buildings with residential units well above the flooding level and the landscape planning, which would produce impervious surface, increased greenscapes, would address many of the concerns the state addressed in their letter, telling us not to approve this because of flooding concerns. Additionally, I appreciate the point that Fusco, the 4th largest taxpayer in the city, made, and a company that's done business here for generations, has their headquarters right next to the proposed development, and so has a vested interest in its success and has a long-term commitment to the city. However, I do think it's important to have more public focus, as my colleagues from Ward 21 and Ward 25 said, on one concern raised in the DEP letter, that we didn't talk so much, that wasn't discussed so much at the hearing, and that's that Longworth Drive is vulnerable to coastal flooding. As the letter stated, quote, since Longworth Drive leading to the subject parcel will itself be partially flooded, therefore it appears to be no way to provide dry access to 500 residential units in the property during such flooding and storm events. With the reality of our climate crisis, I think we need more public discussion soon about those infrastructure improvements, including the cost of how it will be paid for, in conjunction with approving the housing here. With that being said, I do think, particularly given the tax revenue this will be bringing in, that it is that is worth making these to move forward with this project, because the benefits do, I think, in the end, are worthwhile, given whether the costs are publicly funded or through the private tax money we get. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I call on order from Ward 12.
I too rise in support of this item to approve PPP 53. The Fusco Corporation has a long history in New Haven with a respectful reputation, and this is a great start also to the revitalization of Longport. I appreciate at the committee meeting how prepared they were with all aspects of their planning and very, very considerate of the flooding and how to best achieve some of the goals that my colleagues have concerns with. So I appreciate their detail that they had during the meeting. So of course, I have the same concern regarding the flooding, but I'm confident that the Fusco Corporation, the city, and possibly the state and federal government will come in and build a safe infrastructure to avoid any flooding, and an evacuation plan will be in full detail in order for the residents to be safe in that area. But I do support this item. I encourage my colleagues to do so. And with the reputation that the Fusco Group has in this city, I think we are confident that they will do whatever it needs to be done to build a safe environment. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is an ordinance amendment. I'll have an order from Ward 12.
Thank you, Madam President. Saban,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yay.
Hurt. Yes. E. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Singh,
Yes.
C. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Roth,
Yes.
Hoopo,
Yes.
Decker, Lester,
Yes.
Hayward, and Toombs, yes. Charlie Santana,
Yes.
Acosta, Santiago,
Yes.
Crespo,
See.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Nicola,
Yes.
Edwards, Ariaramada, Winter,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Walker Meyer,
Yes.
Hamilton, Marchand,
Yes.
Brackeen, Furlow,
Yes.
Marks,
Yes.
Wingate, yes. Smith.
Is there anyone who haven't voted wishing to vote? Is there anyone who have voted wishing to change their vote? Seeing none, the item passes. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to suspend section 74-1-A, move for Alders.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This item passes. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Under this ordinance, I move item 22, motion to amend the matter previously adopted. From all the same submitting on behalf of the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, motion to amend file LNF-2021-0447. In order the Board of Alderman previously adopted on October 18, 2021, increasing the acceptance award from the State of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Urban Green and Community Garden Grant Award from $37,335 to $60,000.
Second.
The item has been moved in second. Discussion. I call on order from Ward 5.
Thank you, Madam President. I encourage my colleagues to support this motion, which is being written. This motion will bring more dollars to make improvement into the Kimberly Street, so constituents can enjoy this. Thank you, Madam President.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passes majority leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to close discussion on section 24-1-A of the rules of the board. Alders to conduct further business.
Second.
The item has been moved in second discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item passed. And before a motion to adjourn is appropriate, I am going to ask everyone to please continue to keep our city town clerk, Michael Smart, in your thoughts and in your prayers. Please keep our economic development director, Mr. Mike Piscatelli, in your thoughts and prayers as well on the loss of his dad. Please keep Audebra King in your prayers for the loss of his dad, and we will do a moment of silence when he returns with us. And then I also just want to say thank you to everyone for their thoughts and their prayers and their calls and their texts and everything else on a recent loss that I had in my family. It's appreciated. I know the prayers are working because I had a funeral this morning and I'm here today. So I really appreciate it, but I really would like for people to reach out to our city town clerk. He needs your support and your prayers at this time. And before a motion to adjourn, I will take points of personal privilege. I will now call on colleagues from Ward 22.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to take a moment to thank you guys once again for coming to Dixon on Saturday. That was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful event. Once again, I always tell you guys, if you didn't ride with me, none of that would happen. But because you did, I thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to take out a minute to thank every last city worker for their support in the endeavor of the House over the last 10 years. A lot of times, you know, you don't see the staff and the different things that they do to make things happen, but the staff makes things happen. And I just want to thank the staff so much for everything that you've done, because Dixville, we do now have our Q House, and we're going to continue to build and grow. So again, thank you. Thank you.
Are there any more points of personal privilege? Okay, I call on order from Ward 29.
Thank you, Madam President. It's been a sorrowful year for this board in reference to losses. Some have more than others. I think it would be appropriate if we do a moment of silence for your family member on today, that you sacrifice your time tonight as you just left this room this morning with all the losses that you had over the last couple of years, just previously your father. So I think we should have a moment of silence for him. Thank you.
I will now call on colleague from Ward 7.
Thank you, Madam President. Our colleague from Ward 21 is always the vice president, people's birthdays, and his birthday falls before our next meeting. So I just want to wish him
Birthday. Are there any more points of personal privilege?
30.
I call on colleague from Ward 30.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to take the time out to thank the heroes that are in my ward that took their time out, community, to revamp 333 Valley Street. When the community came out to paint the whole center, I just think it was very remarkable because it brought community together, and I just wanted to thank those heroes that came up. Thank you, Madam President.
Are there any more points of personal privilege?
Second.
Motion's been made in second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Everybody have a good night. Remember to stay safe. Continue to social distance, wear your mask, sanitize.